And we're live. On it. Another episode of Q Chat coming at you. Who's going to be the first person to comment while I go over here and share?
Let's see.
Crazy. Dave, you seem a little tired, man.
Yo, Travis is in. Look,
Angel, you don't count. If you counted, I would enter it every single week.
What's up, everybody? What'd you say we're going to do?
You need coffee in that mug tonight.
It's my hot tea.
Yeah.
I changed the cup up, though.
Did you? Let me see the cup. Oh, damn, I don't even have one of those yet. Come on now, man. Jeez.
I picked it up the other day. I'll get you one.
All right.
That was a trial run.
Is that Yeti or that's your lady? Did the Yeti or her son did the Yeti cups?
Yeah, I don't even know who makes it. Juro. Her son was trying it. It's a little crooked, but hey, whatever. It's a free cup.
Yeah, take the crooked one. It makes it authentic. Man, 25 views already. We're just gonna jump into this. Of course, we got to give a huge shout out to Boost Your Barbecue and Big Jim Hudgens Steak Rub. Thank you guys so much for your support. We're going to have a special giveaway here halfway through the show with a trivia question like we did for with John Lindsay and Ronald Burns a couple weeks ago. Thank you to Boost Your Barbecue for that. Then next week, we'll probably start giving away some Jim Hudgens Rub because Dave got a nice case of that sent to his place a couple weeks ago. So we'll start with that. But tonight we have the Queens of the Mid Atlantic on for the barbecue. And Tiffany came to us with the idea of doing kind of like another Swami idea, which I think Amy Overby turned into what's going to be, we'll let them introduce it here. So we'll bring on Tiffany. Hold on. Where's my mouse? There we go. And Tiffany, hi.
Hey, everybody.
So kind of explain your idea here of what you wanted to do here this evening.
So I tried to assemble a wide variety of talented ladies from the Mid-Atlantic that have a bunch of different background stories. And we thought maybe approaching it like Swami, but Amy said nobody can fill my face. So we decided to go with The View, except for with women people actually want to listen to.
All right. Well, let's bring on our host here, Miss Amy Overby.
Hello.
So you got a bunch of questions that everyone put together here tonight, correct?
I do. I have I run the gamut of everything you guys could think of, and then please feel free to drop comments down, and Jake and Dave will make sure they get us over to us to answer.
Absolutely. Dave and I are going to we'll be on the screen, but we're going to sit tight here a little bit tonight. And, I might talk a little bit less, and Dave, you're going to talk just as much as you normally do.
Yes! Killing
it. So, all right, you two want to introduce who all you have on here tonight? And we'll bring them on one by one.
Yeah, so we have Robin from Rockin' Robins.
Hey,
Robin
everyone.
Garrett. KCBS and now SCA Queen. And then we have Laree and Kenzie joining us. Laree's hiding. Kenzie's taking the spotlight for tonight.
As she will for the rest of her career.
Yeah. And then Tiff, you want to help me out with the last couple?
So we have Lisa from Apocalypse Now. The chicken chick is on. And we also have Angel Todd, who is another SCA queen, also female pitmaster, business owner, SCA rep. I could go on.
And going back to Lisa, she took the torch from me as first lady president of MABA to now second lady president of MABA. Go girls.
We're taking over the show.
Awesome. Well, we will let you all get on with it here. It's going to be exciting to watch and listen to.
All right. So I think we'll start it off with probably what everybody just kind of wants to get out of the way here as ladies in barbecue. It's kind of the tired story of like, do people really still think that it's crazy that ladies are competing in barbecue? I know for myself, I just want to be looked at as a pitmaster and not a lady pitmaster. And I definitely feel like I get that respect and get that feeling when I'm out there on the circuit. So just want to know how the rest of you feel, both in KCBS and on the SBA side.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of like to be recognized as a female pitmaster. I mean, I've been in a male-dominated industry my whole entire life, so I think when a woman gets to achieve a certain parallel to men, it's nice for all the ladies out there to have somebody to look up to and say, "Yeah, I can do that. She did it." So I actually kind of like kicking their butts as a girl.
I agree.
Don't everybody talk
I would
about
say that I like with you, Tiffany. I like being recognized as a woman. I like when I walk up and I get those hugs. But when I'm cooking, I'm a pitmaster, and that's what it's all about. And I would love to be able to kick anybody's butt, whether I'm male or a female. So I'm very excited.
You do.
But I do like my hugs though when I get there.
I think the boys like their hugs too. They just might not admit it as much. And I'm opposite of Tiffany. I'm in like a totally female-driven world, being a nurse in my real job. And so when I'm out there on the circuit, I just kind of, I think though, being a woman does have some differences and gives us some advantages just by the nature of being a female. Like, obviously we're more organized. I'm just kidding. We're great at multitasking. It's just kind of what we do. Like as moms, I'm a nurse, so it kind of lends itself to some of those skills that you need out there when you're competing. If you're not organized, you're not doing well. I love, Robin, you'll have to help me out. The way Rolf says it, like you have to be prepared to be lucky or something like that,
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So I totally feel that way. Like I feel like I'm lucky very often, but I am absolutely prepared when I walk in. I have timelines, I have grids, I have things that I know I have to get done at certain times and marks I have to meet. But also as a woman, I don't get thrown off if it doesn't go exactly as planned. I can pick that up. And I know men can do that too. I'm not trying to, but it's just, that's kind of our thing. Like as a mom, when things are going crazy, I can just jump in and change gears and do it completely different the next time. So,
correct.
Yeah. So, Angel, specific kind of to you, being out there and doing SCA organizing and judging and that sort of stuff, do you feel like that's different being a female that's doing a lot of judging? And Tiff, you can weigh in on that too, because you judged a whole lot before you switched over to a cook.
Well, relating to the last question, I have to say, look at first place in 2020 for the SCA Points Championship. It was Sandy Brown. She absolutely dominated the field, and I couldn't be happier for her. I'm very excited to get down to Texas in 2 weeks and see her claim her prize. As far as the rep side of it, I don't really look at it any different being a female. I have a lot of great female reps around me that I talk to very often, and they're just as supportive as I am of them, and I love every minute of it.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as me as a female judge, I think that the weirdest thing for me was when I was trying to be a master, and I was trying to, I had to approach a team, right? And I'm a single female approaching barbecue teams. Like that was never going to happen. If Mike Cockroad hadn't have been a judge also, and we were sitting at the table, and I was like, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get my, my cooking with the team, because I just, I was paralyzed to go up and talk to all these cook teams. Like, are they going to think I'm hitting on their man, or are they going to think I'm flirting and like on my number? I was like, yeah, no, I'm just going to stay away from all that. So yeah, I was lucky to have Mike say, yeah, you can come cook with me.
Awesome. I'm trying to mute in between because there's a little bit of feedback, it seems like. So if you guys, if I start moving my mouth, you can do the teacher thing to me and say you're on mute. So
yeah, I'm playing around with that here, jumping around between all of you, trying to figure out exactly who it was. So we got you covered here with that. Okay. I'm just trying to find who it is exactly.
Great.
Yeah, I'm muting you because my dog's trying to dig a hole in that bed next to me. So yeah.
Perfect. So I guess we'll kind of jump into some of the other questions about whether being a female or a male, we're all always looking to do better each day and in each competition. So like what really drives you, or do you feel kind of sticks out about you so that you can stand out in the field of all competitors when you're out there?
Come on, ladies. I know you girls run your mouth more than this.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer them all, but I think everybody wants to get their time in there.
So, I know, Lisa, you haven't said anything. Maybe you should comment on that.
Okay. I'm not sure it's really any different from what anybody else does, but for me, it's absolutely, like I said, having that timeline and adhering to it strictly and just meeting every single mark along the way and getting that consistency down every week, week in and week out, making sure that everything just goes according to plan as best we can.
Definitely.
I agree. It's whether you're practicing or you're competing, it is exactly the same every week. So if something goes awry, whether it's a practice or a stake, you can adjust and make things happen the way you need them to happen.
Absolutely.
So I think specifically for me, what drives me each and every week to do it is fun. If I didn't have fun at the last competition, I'm a little bit hesitant about the next one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that kind of sounds cliche because of course I want to hear my name called. Like, I don't know if I'd be doing this long if I never, ever heard my name called at a competition. Overall, like if I didn't, I'm more ecstatic that I had a good time with friends and really just put myself out there and did the best that I could. It's kind of how I look at everyday life. Like if I'm not striving to do better next time, what am I doing it for? So if I was always in 52nd place out of 52, I'm not sure I could keep doing that because it's not for me, right? So it's always just trying to improve one thing at a time, systematically look at what I may have done wrong or different last time, reevaluate and go back out and put my best foot forward.
I agree, Amy. I tell Rolf every week I go in there to win. So not that it's arrogance, but if I'm not there to win, what am I doing there? Besides, I mean, I always have fun. So that's a given for me. But I agree with you. I mean, you're there to do a great job, be successful amongst your peers, and part of being that happy and enjoying it is being happy for everybody else as well. But if you went in, like you say, every week and you never did well, you know, it'd be hard to keep it going every week. But I think that having support from whether it's ladies or men or whatever that is, just as a group, it's just great, the support of everybody you get.
Well, I think it's easier to set that aside when it's an SCA competition as opposed to KCBS. KCBS is so much work, you know, from the prep to the loading to the competing to the cleaning. You know, that's a lot of work to say, well, I want to have fun. You know, a lot of times I wasn't having that much fun. You know, it was just there's a lot of work and a lot of stress. Well, you know, cooking a steak, you know, that's dumbing it down quite a bit, but it is a lot easier, you know, as far as your setup and everything. So it's a lot easier to go and just say, hey, I'm here to have fun. Now, the last time I said I was here to have fun, I happened to come in like first and third or something. But, yeah.
Yeah, you got my first place all blue.
Keep saying it.
We've all had those days where we're just like, oh, is this really what we want to be doing right now? Amy, you should know that from way back at the test hook that day when you were out in the 30-mile-an-hour gusty winds at 15 miles.
I'm going to drink to that right now. I would literally be a human icicle if it weren't for the graciousness of the Garretts at the Q test. So Sean and I showed up. It was in March, right? It was March and should have been warm. It was the first time I met Tiffany and didn't even know I met Tiffany. That's how crazy this is. And Sean and I were competing outside in a tent. The Garretts put us in the corner thinking it would be the best place to block the wind for us because we were like the only no trailer team, nothing. And yeah, when they let us move inside and sleep with the deer head behind us, we have pictures of it. I'll have to share at some point. And when we woke up in the morning, our buckets of water that were holding our pop-ups down had ice this thick that we were playing frisbee toss with. So if we had stayed outside, there's some of the best pictures. I think Jake that you posted them last time when I was on, where I have my big Ravens hoodie up, and it is like literally the frozen tundra of barbecue. I think, did anybody do the one in North Carolina this weekend? Because I heard that was quite a frosty venture. No, the North Carolina shootout. Okay. Okay. All right. I didn't know. The last question that when we were kind of talking
here, Amy, a lot of people are asking here on Kenzie's thought on the last question.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't hear the last question, honey. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let me go back. I'm trying to keep myself in check and delete them as I ask.
I think that one was what drives you to compete. And that's a really interesting one for Kenzie, because not only is she driven to compete, she was driven to get out from her family's tent and go out on her own. So what got you there, Kenzie? What spurred you into action?
Did y'all hear her? Speak up.
You and Dad were doing it, and I thought it was really fun, so I decided to do it.
So it was the fun for you too, Jens. You like that they were having such a good time, enjoying themselves, and you wanted to feel that for yourself?
Or were you just bored hanging out in the car, so you thought, I might as well just compete here anyway?
He likes getting paid.
The truth comes out. She wants the money. So that kind of segues into another question we were thinking of, is like, what is one of your first barbecue memories? And so I'm sure Kenzie can definitely weigh in on that when she was out there. But I have a similar first one as hers, that we competed with my aunt. And I know I've told this story before in Memphis, for Memphis in May. That was my first exposure to competition barbecue besides watching Barbecue Pitmasters. So like, here I am, just found out I was pregnant with Corden, and go down there, which was somewhat a bummer. I mean, I was super stoked I was pregnant because we tried for like 3 years, but then I'm in Memphis in May and I can't drink alcohol. So I'm drinking non-alcoholic Bloody Marys all weekend long. But the places are like scaffolding. They're like 3-story, basically like buildings that are erected. And it's just a party for 5 days. And we were staying at my aunt's house that was walking distance from the park. We did that 2 years in a row. So 1 year I was pregnant. The next year I was still breastfeeding Corden and met Alton Brown and all of this awesome stuff, and came home and we were like, all right, that's it. Like, I cannot wait to do this again until May. Packed up, our stuff and went up to Bel Air, a couple miles up the road. And that was our first competition. So for me, that's like my very first barbecue memory is in Memphis in May, which for me, it's irreplaceable. So I love that. So Kenzie, what about you? What's your very first memory for barbecue? Or favorite? Oh.
I can't hear her.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Ken.
I can't hear you all. You're unmuted. Still no sound.
All right, we'll come back to her and let her work on that.
But I can tell you one memory I have of Kenzie when she probably doesn't even remember this. Rolf and I were, I don't know if it was South Carolina or Georgia, doing a barbecue contest. And that's when we met Laree and Kenzie and the whole family. And we were just, Rolf and I in the dark, sitting there having a glass of wine. And here comes the Kenzie family. And we sat there and we talked, and we actually fell in love with them that night. It was an amazing experience. So she probably doesn't remember that, but I'm sure Laree and them do. So.
Yeah.
So
Angel, what about you?
I want to hear Lisa's first barbecue memory, because that had to be a strange thing, girl. I mean, you were coming into this already solidified team, and here you are. How did that go your first day?
My very first barbecue experience was going down to DC of all events, and it was just this overwhelming crowd and a team of 7 guys in this trailer, and I was the new girlfriend, and how long is she going to be around for? She's not really interested, and I was just fascinated. And I couldn't wait to get in there and be a part of it and ask 1,000 questions and make a nuisance out of myself. And after a while, I just hung around long enough, and they were like, wow, she actually likes this. She's really interested. And, started with the chicken, and you're just learning each meat down the line and asking 1,000 questions and just having a ball. It's kind of intimidating with all the men in the room, quite frankly. Just not a lot of women around that I noticed. But they just couldn't be more welcoming and more helpful and teaching me all sorts of things. It was great.
So I saw one of the questions out there was, will Angel try her skills in KCBS? And you've already done that.
Yeah, I have actually done that. My first barbecue memory was the Iron Man. That was the first competition we've ever competed at. So, way to start it off. I remember it was my dad, myself, and 2 of his friends. And we had this huge camper, and it was windy as all heck going to that competition. And you could just feel it, swaying when we're trying to get there. And after he had way too much to drink and was throwing up all night. Now me, I was sleeping.
Your dad?
Soundly. Yeah.
None of us know what that's like.
They all 3 might have had a little bit too much, but they were throwing up, and I was sleeping soundly. I woke up in the morning, and he forgot to put, I don't know what he forgot to put on. Forgot to put something on. I was only in 8th grade at that time. So I didn't really care. I just went along for the fun of it. And I remember we were sitting there waiting for the awards, and I don't know how many were competing there. Say just there were 60. I was like, I bet we were probably top 20. I mean, we weren't last, but we certainly weren't top 20. So yeah, we competed in KCBS, started in I think 2016, and we cooked for about 2 years, and then found the SCA and just fell in love with it, and haven't really looked back.
I think we got some audio here on Kenzie now.
All right. Ken's first or favorite barbecue memory for you?
Winning the first place dessert in 2016.
And
She
what
said
did
it
you
was when
make
she
if you-
got-
Yeah, first place in
Yeah, what's
dessert.
that?
What'd you make if you don't mind sharing with us?
Caramel apple cheesecake, right?
Mm-hmm. Did y'all hear she made a salted caramel apple cheesecake?
Can I get the trophy?
Sounds delish.
Delicious.
That was the weekend we met Robin and Raw.
I was gonna say, was that the same weekend? Because I thought it was.
That was that weekend.
Cheesecake
Rob
always
said he
goes
ate
well.
that and loved it.
No, you don't need to go get your trophy.
Hey, we all like to show them off, Kenzie. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
That's true.
We got a really good question here in the comments from Travis Murphy. He says, with the Fire and Ice series being so successful, do you see a surge in more series like that happening to promote females in the sport? And if so, in what capacities?
Tiff and I just made the same exact face. That was pretty funny. Mine went right and yours went left. But yeah, I mean, as competitors in that, it was definitely something that was coming up, talking about World Food Championships. Like, I cannot replace that memory with anything. I wish the only way I would want to replace it is if Tiff had actually gone and I was her sous chef, which was the original plan. I'm not sure if everybody knows that, but Tiff actually beat me in Spring Grove and got her little ticket to go there and then couldn't make it. I was supposed to be her number 2. I haven't heard anything like that. So Cowboy has kind of gotten into some other areas and sponsoring individuals, which I'm grateful to be one of those individuals. But I don't really see anything that's specifically to promote female pitmasters more. Maybe we're becoming too common now, which is kind of a good thing. But yeah, I don't know what else you ladies have heard anything different than I have.
Yeah, it would have to be a big product or a grill or, like another charcoal company. But yeah, I think, the charcoal companies that are out there already, have a lot of business. So I think Cowboy was probably trying to make a name too, as well as support women. So I don't know that there's somebody out there hungry that wants to focus on the females.
We can get it.
It's very common now. So you're right, Tiff. It might be just that it's just every day now.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Cowboy is an amazing supporter for barbecue in general and females in general. I don't know if you guys, shameless plug kind of, but logged in for those 12 days of Q at Christmas time, the holidays. I mean, there were a bunch of women on that. Keita Roberts does an amazing job over there trying to help promote women. Girl Carnivore. I mean, she kills it. Some of her pictures and spreads are awesome. So they're definitely still focused on female pitmasters, but I just don't see I wish there was, because man, would I love to go back to WFC, and I would love to be surrounded by some of you all there, because that would be just the coolest thing ever. But yeah. So I don't know, Jake, do you think we're about halfway for us to do our little, now that I just sort of plugged my sponsor, there's a few other people on here who are sponsored by Boost Your Barbecue.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got Chris Kosman reached out to us, and since we have Miss Kinsey and Angel Todd as Boost Your Barbecue promoters as well, he wants to do a giveaway of a bottle of Blues Hog Bold and Beefy rub, which that stuff is amazing if you haven't tried that out yet. But what we're going to do, kind of just like what we did with John Lindsay and Ronald Burns, we're going to ask you all a trivia question. To be honest, we're running some pretty seriously good numbers right now, I just got to say. So there's a lot of people watching. So we'll see who gets to get the bottle. But what we'll do here, Amy, you had a question. Go ahead and ask it. And then the first person to get the answer correct, we're going to get you a bottle of Bold and Beefy.
All right. So we want to know if anyone out there knows how many of the ladies in this group have had a perfect score, either in a KCBS category, an SCA cook-off, or even an overall KCBS.
Real quick, I just gotta say,
I think Jeff Jeopardy music.
Hold on. We got about 7 people going here. What'd you say, Angel?
I said real quick, I just want to say, if you guys have not checked out Boost Your Barbecue, make sure you guys go and check them out. It's a great store. They're just starting out. They have great selection of rubs and sauces and tools on there. And they carry the artistic combo if you're looking for it. So if you need anything, that's your place to go. Go check them out, boostyorbarbecue.com.
We need that commercial. But Susan Handy got it right with 4.
A lady! We have a lady winner, and the lady's cute.
Let's be fair here. Rodney Garrett said 2. So I know the 2 he's thinking about. Come on, Rodney. There's other ladies on here other than your 2.
I don't know who Rodney thinks it was. Just Robin and Tiff, and he just threw the rest of us just right on out in the wash. Huh?
Right under the bus.
My executive producer text Rodney and see who he thought had a perfect score, and I will let you know.
He was there for 9, so that's kind of cheating.
All right, so I got that kind of gets us to, if we want to talk about some of those accomplishments that we've had. Who wants to go ahead and share? We've already given away clearly that Robin and Tiff had those since Rodney's weighing in. So why don't you girls take it first, and then us other peons that may have gotten good calls can weigh in later.
Rodney, you are going to be kissing some booty.
Just like to point out, my shirt does say Princess of Poultry, which was kind of a clue.
Yeah, so mine was kind of a weird, fluky. I think, like I've said it before, I think all my wins or high scores are flukes, because I think it's pretty random between scoring and your product that you turn in. But I had scored pretty high in pork. It was the jamboree, and it was a double. I had scored pretty high in pork the night before. And I will say this is after taking my Fay to Pork Lips Now's class. So I had done pretty well in pork the night before, and I was talking to the smoke craft guys, and they were like, turn your product diagonally. So I turn in my next thing of pork the next day, turn my product in the box diagonally. And I think that was my only call. And so I'm sitting there like, whatever, I'm not going to get a call. Who cares? I just want to pack up and go home. And then they said, you know how they do when it's just like, Then first place with a perfect score, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then they call my name, I'm like, no way. And everybody was like, did you think you did a really good job? I'm like, no, I actually thought it was the average, same stuff. I've turned in as close as I can repeat it. So yeah, I mean, it was a shock. Yeah, and I skipped all the way to the state.
I would have too.
So how about yours? Well, Robin, you have more than one.
More than one
Perfect score?
Well, we have a 700. I have a 700, which was at the Ironman.
Yeah.
So NBD.
And that was a shock, obviously, because first of all, I didn't want to do Ironman because that's too hard for me. And then looking back on it after the situation, it was kind of good because we didn't have to adjust anything because we used Weber's. So I just basically did everything we always did. Where a lot of people with Jambos and things like that had to really adjust their cup, where I didn't. So that was the good thing, and not knowing it at the time, but looking back after the win in the 700, that was part of the program because we just did everything we always did. So with SCA, I've never had a perfect, of course, no one has. But, I've had a 253.9, which is a pretty high score in SCA. So I'm very proud of that.
Lisa?
Yeah, Lisa.
Yep. For us, it was at the casino out in West Virginia. And we have been smack talking back and forth with the Pig and Whiskey boys, about the early Chicken Wars days, talking about that. They pulled a second place and they were walking back and they were smack talking and the fingers were going in the whole 9 yards. And all of a sudden they said, oh, in first place with a perfect 180. And no, that's not me. It was just an average day for us. It really didn't stand out as really good chicken that day per se. And I about fell out of my chair when they called our name. You got to be kidding me. And I just turned to Josh and to Brent and was like, what are you going to do now, right? So it was a good day.
But not if I can interject on that too, because my perfect score was in chicken as well. But we got the silent 180 because they didn't tell anybody we had a perfect score. So we didn't know until after we left. And actually, Mike Fay was the one that pointed out that we had a perfect score. And that's before we looked at the score sheet. So it was kind of interesting how everybody kind of scrambled, about that. But Mike Fay picked up on that because we hadn't looked at the score sheet. So the day we actually got a perfect score in chicken, we didn't know it at the time we got the award.
Oh.
So Amy?
So Princess of Poultry kind of came from there, but mine was in DC. And actually, Lisa was part of the pre-tasting of my 180 chicken. I walked over to Mike and we did our exchange because we were right next to each other. And I was like, it is gritty and salty and say goodbye. And then there is actually video evidence of me sitting there. Chris Safley from Poke and Smoke actually came up to help us for the weekend because Joe couldn't be there. And he was sitting next to me as the awards were being called, and same kind of like Lisa, it was like third place, second place. And I'm like, and Safley was like, come on, like you probably have this. And I was like, they're like literally on camera. I was like, yeah, no way. Cause then they said a perfect 180. And I was like, uh-huh. And then they called me and I think I almost passed out and threw up and I skipped and squealed and all of that up to the stage. Like I'm known for now. And then afterwards, I think the only thing I heard for about 15 minutes, and Lisa can attest to this, was Mike Fay continuously going, it was gritty, it was salty, it was, while he was holding his 76-foot trophy because he actually got a GC. But yeah, that's all every time I'd be like, Mike Bowen, he'd be like, it was gritty. So that was TMC's only 180 is mine. So.
Amy, if I remember correctly, we were at the Pork in the Park, and there was a chicken episode with you.
Smoke in the Park. Lemoyne.
No, it was the one in Dover or something, and your chicken was undercooked, so you didn't put it in. And what did Rolf tell you? Turn it in.
Yeah. That was the one at the casino.
Yes.
Yeah, that is like my worst. If we talked about our best barbecue memories, I guess we could share our worst.
Well, I didn't mean you make it share as your worst, but it was a learning moment, basically.
No, it's
And no
perfect.
matter
I
what.
think, yeah, I think that's totally appropriate that we have had bad, and I was devastated. So it snowed. It was in, I think, April, and there was no reason for it to snow, and all of a sudden it did. And the wind started whipping around us. The tent was hitting me in the head. Sean came over with like knives from our stuff and was trying to cut down the tent around me, so it stopped whacking me so hard in the head. My fire completely went out. This is when I used to cook on a big green egg. The fire completely went out, and at some point, I don't know, I went into self-preservation mode instead of worried about my chicken mode. Yeah, and that was Smokin' Fools was there too, because they said, like, you should have just chopped off the edges and turned in what was cooked. But by the time I opened it, my chicken was at 135 degrees in the center, and I just said, forget it. And I sat down and I cried for about 30 seconds, and then I got up and said, well, now I got to turn in pork. So, you know, I mean, that's what it is. We got a 10th place brisket call that day, so we were able to turn it around and make something out of a really bad situation, and that's what you have to do. You can cry in your Cheerios for that 30 seconds and then wipe your tears and move on. So,
seeing as an outsider, I saw you as this positive thing that overcame this tragic situation. So to me, that's what I saw out of it.
I can pull in my executive producer to let you know what it was really like. Sean, you're not cutting it fast enough. It's hitting me in the head. Why is this going on? Why did you let my smoker go out? What are you thinking? That's always my meat that gets messed up. Why are you? Yeah, that's more what
I
that
don't know
was like.
anybody that hears that in our family.
So yeah, does anybody else have one of those downside moments you want to share?
We all do. Go ahead, Lisa. Tiffany.
Yeah, mine have been mostly alcohol related. So the self-inflicted. But I did have one weird one. What was it? In New Holland. I had ribs that just turned out super, super dark. And what I took away from that is I just had too much wood. Yes, it never happened again. But man, when I pulled them off, I was like, what are these things? They were hideous. And yeah, those are ones you're just like, I'm sorry, judges. You're going to have to eat at least one bite of this.
Too much cherry wood?
Yeah, I never used cherry, but I used pecan and maple. So it must have been too much. I'm like, that's my guess. Like I said, it never happened again, but I way back the wood out of that, you know. And cooking with gateways, I don't even know. When I cook at home now, I don't even use wood because they just had, you know, they have a natural smoky flavor with just straight charcoal. And I always use cowboy charcoal in my smoker.
Lisa, do you have any of those moments?
No, nothing quite that tragic. I must say I have had the occasional meltdown in the trailer when things aren't going the right way and, you know, panicked about it. But, you know, it's amazing just when you think that it's this awful turn in and no one's going to like it, you know, as Amy was saying. Sometimes it just surprises you and it ends up being not quite so horrible as you would think. You just got to go with what you got.
How about you? What's your favorite, or what's your learning experience that you've had so far? What's your worst barbecue memory?
I don't know.
What's your best memory barbecue?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Okay.
Hers has all been peaches and cream, so we're good. Angel, besides having to deal with your dad getting sick at a contest, which I'm sure was not one of your favorite memories, do you have any, or even like, you know, being a judge or a rep, a time where you put something in your mouth and maybe regretted being a judge for a moment?
I'm going to talk about the first time I ever competed on my own. It was in 2019 in the SCA. And I cooked a practice steak there, which I do not cook a practice steak now, but probably because of this memory. But there, the competition was on a Saturday, and my dad and I practiced at home, I think that Thursday. And I told him then, I'm like, this thermometer is not working. I'm like, we need a new one before we go to Ohio. And he's like, it's fine. I'm like, okay, whatever. So we get there, and I'm nervous as heck because I'm cooking on my own and whatever. And I cooked the practice steak, And I was like, whatever, I'm not going to taste it yet. We're just going to see how the real one turns out. So I had the real one, and we were temping it, and it was 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Would not go above 90 degrees. I'm like, this thing has to be done. I was like screaming at him. I'm like, see what you did? Like, I was so upset. And I was like, well, I have to turn it in. So I pulled it off the grill at 90 degrees. We let it sit for a couple minutes, and I said, well, it's going in. I don't know what to do. And he was texting Brett, and he was sending pictures to me. He's like making fun of me. He's like, look how upset she is and whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm upset. So then I tasted the practice steak after I had already turned in my good one. And I tasted the practice one. I like spit it out in this paper towel. I'm like, wow, this is bad. I was like, I have to be in last place. And we went to the awards, and we were waiting. And they called like second place. And I was like, I literally looked at him and I said, I had to have gotten last place. And then they called me first place, and I like looked at him. He jumped up and started screaming before I even realized what they said. So to this day, we now have a new thermometer.
So I don't cook SCA, so I'm trying to learn a little bit about it. But in my mind, that would make me want to do a practice steak, because your practice you were done with, but your real one was good. So why did it make you decide you're not going to do practice steaks anymore?
It freaks me out. It's like, if I do the practice one really well, I pressure myself so much to make that other one perfect that I'm just like, I'm doing the first one and that's all I'm doing. Most of the time I will cook it later just so we don't have to take it home, because most of our competitions are 4 hours away and we just don't take the cooler with ice and whatever. So I will cook it later, but to cook it before and make sure that my marks are done and everything, I just psych myself out.
Gotcha. And I saw while you were talking, Rodney pumped up and said one and done. So is that true, Tiff and Robin?
Oh no,
No, not for Robin.
Well, I should have known better. Robin brings her in KCBS. Robin, I'm gonna go ahead and just spill it. I'm sipping the tea and spilling it. She had like her, because you had like your spice measured to the line. You didn't bring more than you would need, because that's all you needed. And if something went wrong, it went wrong, and it wasn't meant to be. And I was like, I don't even know how. I mean, like, you didn't have an extra steak. You'd be like, I'd love, like, Indy, I have that too, but we only bring enough for exactly what we need. We make the sauce ahead of time. So I know you used to be, Robin would be halfway through a sip of Prosecco and go running because she'd go, and run. So I know you.
Fun of me, Amy. People would make fun of me because, if those that don't know, I would have a timeline for each meet. So as I was going through everything, or I would cross everything off. I'd go sit down and I'm like, okay, here's what's happening. Because I'm a control freak, number one, A type, if you haven't noticed. So I would say, here's what's happening. You're doing this, and here's what I have to do. And people would be there talking with us, and the alarm would go off, and we would just get up and leave. And people would be like, what is going on? We don't even know what just happened here, but we've gone. We're moving on to the next process. But I would measure everything out to the teaspoon. Out with a knife before we left. So everything was exact. I didn't have to put any thought into it. So it just made it easier.
So you do two steaks for sure.
I'm sorry.
She cooks 2 steaks, and tell her what Rolf said about the 10-foot putt.
Right. Like if you were playing golf and if you had a chance to do a practice putt, why wouldn't you? Why would you take the first one and roll with it? So you might as well take the practice putt, and if you don't do well or you do, then repeat it or improve it. Yeah, and I am with Angel. I don't want to know. I don't want to have any preconceived notion. That steak I cook is going to be the best one that I picked out of my 2. I'm going to cook it. I'm going to turn it in, whatever the judges say or what the judges say, because if I thought it was bad, I would spend that next hour being angry. If I thought it was good, I would get my hopes up and then probably be disappointed. So I just take the it is what it is.
All right, so now I'm super curious because I don't do SCA. So we have 2 ladies who do 1 steak. We have 1 lady who does 2 steaks. We had Rodney weigh in on the 1. Jake and Dave, you guys do SCA as well, right?
Yeah. Well,
So I want to see if this is like a woman thing versus a guy thing, or like if it's a type A versus a type B. And I know that some of the guys were hoping some men would weigh in on this talk. So what do you guys do?
Dave, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
No, Dave, you go first because you don't talk enough.
You're muted, buddy. I can't unmute you. You muted yourself.
My bad. I do too. I do a practice steak.
Practice.
I've tried it both ways, and I don't. Steak. Sorry, I blipped out. No, I like sometimes I've done it both ways, but I like to cook my practice steak.
So I'm a little tossed up in between. I like doing a practice steak, but I completely agree with Angel where if you produce that practice steak and it's perfect, you are way too like overthinking the next one and wanting to make sure that one's perfect as well. So I'll admit the first award I ever got, I only cooked 1 steak. My practice steak I put on after it was done because you're just you hit that perfect and then you try it and it's great and then you go turn it in because it's perfect. You know it's great and you just go turn it in. So I'm a little bit up to both. I also learned that competing with Dave, if I give him my practice steak to try, he makes awful comments and then I really get in my head. So Dave's not allowed to try my practice steak if I cook it because that doesn't taste right. That doesn't taste like how we practice. That's not right. That's not right. And then I'm pissed off, and yeah, then I'm storming things around the trailer. I'm sitting on the cooler, just pouting, and because I have junk, I have garbage to turn in now, according to Dave. And yeah,
Well, I'm just being honest.
You're getting in my head.
No, don't let it get to your head.
Dave, do you have a saw blade?
Stop. Come on. He got lucky.
What?
He got lucky. Next competition, he forgets his rubs. I mean, come on. How much of luck was that?
Here, Kinsey. My mom tells me I can bring my trophies. Here, Dave.
You know what? A blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, he's right. I did forget my seasonings the next week.
And he ain't done nothing. And I've beat him every time since then. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of undecided on the practice steak.
I'm truly intrigued and want to know more about this, and then I kind of want to get into backyard because that's something I'm really always intrigued about, and Kenzie is our expert for that. But and Dave and Jake, I hope that you guys are keep chiming in on this. But you said about turning in your practice one. So that is an option, like the timing. I've watched like I know at one competition I was watching some people do their steaks and like both almost went on within like minutes of each other to know. And then some you can do way ahead of time. So can someone want to take that and kind of explain to people who might be like me, mostly KCBS and not really get the whole SCA flow of things?
I'll kind of take this one.
Where are you going?
So in the SCA, instead of the 10-minute window, 5 before, 5 after in KCBS, we do a 30-minute window. So most competitions, we try to use the same timeline for most if possible. It obviously depends if they have ancillary categories, but it's a 30-minute window. So most turn-ins are like 2 to 2:30. I know Robin is a big stickler for this. They like to stick to a timeline. They don't like when the time changes, which I respect very much. So a lot of people, obviously, they rest their steak. I personally rest my steak for about 10 minutes. So it really depends. I mean, if you want to cook a practice steak, some people will cook it, 40 minutes before and see how it turns out, see how they'll cut it, and they'll see how the lighting is compared to it. I know Robin and Rolf, they have these extravagant lights that like change color and everything.
Photo studio.
Things ever, but you can see that it works for them. I know I've talked to Robin at multiple competitions, and she's been in her head, and she tells me it's an awful steak, and then she goes and wins. So I think every time that we have a bad day, it turns into a good day. But yeah, some people, though, they cook their practice steak 40 minutes before. They'll cook it 5 minutes before so they know what to do. I personally, obviously, I don't cook one at all. So I'll cook it maybe 20 minutes after I already turned my good one in just to see what it tastes like. I don't know. I don't know about Robin. I don't know how early she cooks hers. All I know is if I'm walking around talking to them and she's cooking a practice steak, I just look the other way. I don't even stop and say hi.
Yeah, see, that's what I was kind of wondering, Angel, because, you know, like when I cook chicken, I'll cook like an insane amount. So we'll get into talking about like the jack and things like that. I actually am like, I was laughing so hard because Sean bought this whole setup because he has dreams of us doing a podcast one day. And so I have like this gigantic plum like waffle light in front of me. So when you said that, I'm cracking up because I'm literally in that right now. But back to what I was asking. I'll do like 24 pieces of chicken, which like somebody came to me and at the Jack and was like, this is ridiculous what you're doing. You know, the amount of chicken that you're doing. I got 5th place at the Jack in my chicken. So I'd like to say it was for a reason, but, you know, but that would drive me nuts that you're turning in something that you didn't even get to take a bite from because you clearly can't turn in a piece of steak with like one slice out of the spinalis, you know? And so like, I kind of get what you're saying where you cook it afterwards just to know like, okay, now that's what I turned in because it's as close to what I think I just did as possible, as opposed to cooking it before. Like I'm loving this conversation because I'm so interested in doing SCA. Like I want to beat my husband really bad on one-on-one because we do cook together. You know, I'm not a one-woman show like Tiffany, which is mind-blowing in and of itself. But so yeah, Jake, when you're doing a practice steak, is yours before or after?
Mine's definitely before, 30 minutes before. So my whole timeline is spread out to where I do one steak 30 minutes before the next steak. I'm taking one steak out of the marinade and putting another one in the marinade. And that's kind of how I roll with mine, which truthfully doesn't give me a whole lot of time to make any adjustments really after tasting it. Because by that time my steak's already been marinated or seasoned for 45 minutes set. So really it just comes down to hitting that doneness correctly. And that's kind of what I practice for, the doneness and the tenderness. But, you know, in a 30-minute timeline or time difference between steaks, it doesn't give a whole lot of time to make any massive adjustments.
So it's just to freak you out and yell at yourself afterwards that you wish you had done something different that you now can't?
100%, because Dave gives me an awful look.
All right, I got that. Dave, what do you do? Because you guys sometimes compete together and then sometimes compete separate. Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty much the same as Jake. My window is 10 minutes different than his. I'm 10 minutes longer. So I'm usually 40 minutes before he is. And because my one rub sits on a little bit longer. But other than that, we're pretty much the same identical timeline.
Okay. And then
And Amy, if
Robin.
I can add to that, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I was also going to say, because you were on Rockin' Robins, like a joint team, like Sean and I kind of are, with Joe and some additives here and there. How is that now that you guys are competing against each other? And I mean, I saw that picture that Jake put up and it looked like you're working together. So do you kind of help each other, or is it completely Robin Joe and Raw show?
No, we're very independent. We don't do anything the same. You know, Rolf taught me because that's how I got into it. But what I was going to say was that when I do a practice, first of all, that's how I was taught. But I look for several things, not just sometimes my taste, you know, you use the same seasonings, but it could be saltier that week because of the meat or something like that. So it gives you a chance, at least me, to figure out what, you know, do I need to adjust that a little bit? Also, if I taste it, every piece of meat is different. So even if you go to the same butcher and everything's very fair in SCA, but if it's all from the same butcher, it may not be from the same cow, but if it's a tough piece of meat that day, then you may want to adjust what you're doing on the next steak. So to me, it's very important. But on what you were asking the question about Rolf and I, no, he's taught me a lot, and I can ask a million questions. But we're in a competition. He is like, I got a contest to win. You need to get away from me, basically. So yeah, so we're very independent. So we were there together. But if you notice, and as Angel said, you don't want to be around me because I am like focused. I don't talk to really anyone when I'm preparing and cooking.
Unless I walk by, then you got to try to somehow get my luck from me.
Well, I was going to say, you know, Jake, when you're next to me in the steak line, I tend to do better. So that's a plus.
Yeah, Robin always says, Robin always says, I have a contest to win.
That's right. Yeah.
So Robin, you're cooking yours far enough in advance that you can make flavor adjustments, unlike Jake. from one to
Yes.
the next.
So I
Okay.
season the same time, but when I do my practice cook, I'm tasting that. So there's been times that I taste it's like very bland. I'm like, okay, I may want to put a little extra pow at the end. Or if it's very salty, then I know I don't want to do anything extra at the end. So even though it might be a different cow, it's still from the same butcher. So it gives me me personally, a little insight on what I should be doing.
Gotcha. Do you do anything else besides not adding? And I'm having you give away some tricks here. Can you tell? Besides not adding more seasoning at the end, what can you do to adjust for too salty? And this can go for all of us. I mean, KCBS, we definitely have things that are too salty. Does anybody have any like tips or tricks for what you can do to try and adjust for something like that?
Lisa, Dave and I will see you in a couple of weeks at the class, so we'll take notes then.
That's right. Bring your pen and paper. Your pen.
I would say first don't start off salty, but if you do get something that's really salty, you can always brush it off a little. It's not going to hurt,
Yeah, and I was thinking about the KCBS because I used to, when I would take my brisket off my slices, I would put a little bit of butter in there, with the jus and put it back on. Well, the difference between salted and unsalted butter, and that plays the same thing with steak. Like if you need a little bit of salt, you can have salted butter and unsalted butter there. So if you want that gloss without salt, you could use unsalted butter. So I think that's, to me, that was brisket and it works for steak.
Wash it off and start over. I don't know that. I love it. Every once in a while I can actually catch the comments and they're cracking me up. I needed to show this to Brant. I saw him chime in earlier. I don't know if you can see. This is my Made on American Street cup from the little contest in Philly. So I saw him pop in. Are we a strict cutoff at 8? Because I could do this all night, but I'm going to try and wrap us up if I need to.
Let's try to wrap it up here because that just means we have to do it again. We try to keep it to an hour because we can only upload so many hours a month to iTunes and Spotify. So I know. We'll have to definitely do it again though, for sure.
Okay. So I want to make sure then I hit on some of the others for, I want to hit on backyard for sure for Kenzie, because you're in backyard. So like, I think everybody wants to know if and when you plan to go pro. But that also kind of brings me around to something because when we started straight off in pros. We just wanted to do 4 meets and so did it that way. And so what, advantages do you, and I know this is a big question, but see from watching your parents and doing backyard that were going to help you if you do decide to go pro?
Are you ever going to go pro? No.
And I totally respect that. So see, like that's how I kind of think. Like I think there's this whole push, like backyard is a stepping stone to pro. And I think for some it is. And for others, like that's where they want to be. Like they want to perfect, SCA wants to perfect 1 meet. Some backyard people want to perfect their chicken and ribs, and that's what they want to invest their time in. I know we have like 3 neighbors that we got into the sport to do backyard, and they only ever want to do it at Bel Air. They don't want to do any more. So I just want to, I kind of wanted to call attention to that because I think that there is room for everybody in this sport, no matter what you want to do, no matter what level you want to do it at. It isn't a push that if you're backyard, you better be thinking about going pro, because I think they're 2 totally different things unless that's what your path is. So I was just kind of curious what others thought about that.
Yeah, no, I actually, I was thinking about Kenzie and doing backyard. I'm like, well, gosh, I mean, if KCBS is like so much work, and that's why I wouldn't want to do it. So, I mean, obviously you can't go backwards, but like you're cutting all your work in half, right? All your prep in half. So why not? It's like a little bit more difficult than SCA, which is just 1 steak and you don't have to bring it because they give it to you. But, if you could cut your work in half, I think you'd get even more enjoyment out of KCBS by just sticking with backyard. Like, why take on 2 extra meets and all that extra work and money?
Yeah. Robin, you guys jumped right into pro, and I know, Lisa, you joined a pro team. So, and now you're doing SCA. So similar thoughts on that of, man, the relief of doing 1 meet?
I think it's amazing. I think it's much easier. When we first got started in the KCBS, we did a backyard and they gave us frozen ribs. So we had to actually thaw the ribs somehow before we could cook. So that was hard. And the first time we did Bel Air, Amy, Leanne Whippen was there. I'll never forget it. And long story made short, it wasn't this
Me
blunt.
too.
But, we were cooking and everything, and she was very nice. She walked over and she said, well, don't expect to win today. You're not going to win your first contest. And I thought, wow, that's pretty, I really didn't think of it that way, because what do I always say? I'm here to win. I'm not going in to think that we're going to come in last or even second. Not that you would win every contest, but if you're going to come in with that attitude, how are you going to win? So you have to have a good attitude. And I think as far as Kenzie's concerned, as far as she's comfortable, I think that's the greatest thing to do. And one day she may decide to go pro, but she's got plenty of time. Just work at your own pace.
Yep, totally. And Robin, that's hysterical, because the first one we did when we decided to jump in was the 10-year anniversary in Bel Air. And it was Leanne. We pulled up like a pickup truck and a Jeep loaded with like this, Sean always calls it ramshackled gear. And Tuffy was there. Myron Mixon was there. Leanne Whippen. And we had been watching Pitmasters. And I was like, like we should just turn around and go home. And then I got a fourth place chicken call standing next to Tuffy. I'll never forget. He walked over to me the night before, because if you haven't been out there when Tuffy is, he is the most gracious human being on planet Earth. Walked around, shook hands with every team. And he came over to me and said, young lady, would you like me to show you how you don't booger up all that lettuce for tomorrow? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Booger up my lettuce? And he showed me the trick of the paper towel and ice water and wring it out and put it on. And I will never, ever forget that, but yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And I think too, it is. I think if you want to progress, there are definitely avenues for that. And if you're happy where you are, then that's where you should be. And
you'll move on when you feel like you need to move on, or if you want to.
Yeah. Or move over, I definitely want to do SCA. But I still love KCBS. I love the 4 meets. So, all right. I think
both is possible.
You can do them both. I got 2 kids, got sports. I've got, oh my goodness, I can't even. Sean and I were going to actually break into SCA in DC last year, and then it got canceled. So that was I bought a PK grill from Dave Pavone the year before. And I was practicing on that and Sean on something else. And yeah, so we're definitely going to do it at one point. I can't wait to see you on the circuit, Angel. We haven't really met before, so I'm excited to know another female.
I'll be there. If you need anything, send me a message.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and put that in right now. All right. I guess I will end it there. This has been awesome. I was honestly super nervous about being asked to be the moderator, and I just seriously feel like I could talk all night long. We could add more people and just keep it going. So I super appreciate Jake letting us have this platform. Tiffany, it was totally your idea, so I'm going to throw it over to you to close it out.
Well, I just want to thank all you ladies and just let you know that, I obviously have a lot of respect for each and every one of you. And I thought we each brought our own thing to the show. So I thank you for when I said, hey, you want to be on this show? I had this idea that every single one of you said, sure, yeah, let's do it. So thank each and every one of you. And I can't wait to see you in real life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for coming on. Dave and I started this show. We never thought we'd turn it into where, this was a platform for everyone to speak on. We kind of had the goal of just sitting and talking to each other. And now, anyone has any ideas, and this is reaching out to anyone viewing. If you guys have any ideas like this, you want to get a group of people together to talk it all out, that would be a lot of fun. We built this show up to be able to do stuff like this and have a platform for our Mid Atlantic family to be on. So yeah, we appreciate you all coming on here and being a part of this tonight.
Thank you guys very much. It's been a great time.
Yeah,
absolutely. You. Angel, thanks for coming on, even though I owe you a thermometer.
I was going to say, I don't have it yet.
Oh, I know. The snow makes everything terrible, and I just keep forgetting to get it. I'm looking right at it.
No, you're
so
fine.
It's here.
It's all good.
But all right. Well, with that being said, ladies, thank you all so daggone much for being on, and we'll definitely have to make this a part 2 for sure in a couple months. We got a really, really big month of March coming up here, and then eventually everyone starts competing again. So we'll get some straightened out here, and we'd love to have you guys on about 6 months just to see where you're at 2021 with everything.
Sounds
How
like
about we have Robin and Tiffany on after the World Championship?
There we go.
I would
Yeah,
love
we'll see
that.
about
Tiff. How about you?
So I can get even more tips about SCA before I do it?
Yeah.
Amy, if you need to know anything, just ask me and I'll ask Rolf and let you know.
Oh, you're on the list. Trust me.
No, if you need anything or you have any questions, just ask. I'll tell you. Like Rolf said,
Yeah.
we're an open book. All you have to do is ask.
Absolutely. So, all right, ladies. Well, you all have a great night. We're going to wrap up the show here, and we'll make sure everyone tunes in next week. We're going to have, speaking of SCA, Amy, we're going to, and everyone else here has dealt with it, we're going to have Eric Forrester of Mason-Dixon Barbecue Service come on and talk about Ironman this year and what we're doing for the steak next week. So that'll be a really good show for everyone to check out and see.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much, Dave and Jake. I appreciate you having us on.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Good night,
you.
y'all.
Good night,
See you
everybody.
later.
Bye.
Pew, 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 pew. Pew.
All right, we need to learn how to click buttons between the two of us. We're hitting comments left and right. But, man, that was a pretty good show here. We're going to wrap everything up. Thanks to Chris Kostman of Boost Your Barbecue for the giveaway. Congrats, Sandy, on – or Susan, sorry. I saw your first name and your last name at the same time. Susan Handy on winning your Bold and Beefy. And if you want to reach out to us to get that and get your address so Chris can send that to you, that'd be great. But Dave, you got anything else, man?
I'm good. Wonderful night. I had a great time.
Dude, it's really hard for me to kind of keep a secret on what's going on next month.
Oh, would you stop? I should have never told you to that last day.
Probably shouldn't. So, all right, with that being said,
Stay tuned, folks. Jake's getting ready to spill the beans.
All right, we'll see you all next week.